Hello, everybody. So this is Starseed and JB, Nikki and John on Facebook. And we are back 8 months later with our second video. We had a catastrophe with our computer shortly after we made the last one entitled Written in the Stars that discussed our journey leading up to reunion. And now we're talking about the next leg of our journey, which was developing our friendship and some of the importance of that for you and your twin flame.
And for those of us that are just joining in, Nikki and I are interfaith ministers.
Spiritual counselors and humanitarians.
On our mission, and we're sharing our story in hopes that it'll inspire others to believe in love and believe in the divinity in the world we're experiencing.
And if you subscribe to our channel, you're going to see a wide variety of videos now that we're caught up on technology again. And you can visit our website, which is evolving, vowofservice.com. That tells you a little bit about what we do besides the twin flame coaching, in addition to upcoming plans we have to grow our mission and some poignant writings and so forth. And we have another website in development that we will tell you about very soon. Actually, a couple websites in development that we will be telling you about very soon. We'll include links at the bottom of the video in the description. And was there something you wanted to say?
No, but I was realizing I finished off kind of the last leg of the story the last time, which was friends first. And so
well, the last one was written in the stars. This one is friends first.
Yeah, so but that idea of friends first. So I'm ready to begin on my part.
Okay.
So when Nikki and I had met, I was in a marriage and was, as I said, halfway, couldn't quite decide if I was trying to make this work or seeking something else. And so over the first year and a month and a day, before we were together, I had friend zoned Nikki pretty hardcore. Well, I was friend zoning anyone and anything because I, hadn't decided yet to end my marriage. And so we had a very different perspective for that year, month, and a day, because Nikki had a very clear knowing of who I was and what I was to her, and I had
and what he was going to become.
And I had a very, very large case of denial.
So one of the things he mentioned in the last video is that even though I had an immediate knowing from the moment I heard his voice, who and what he was to me through a very profound experience, he also had a knowing that I was somehow the most important woman in his life suddenly. But he wasn't ready to take that to a place where he was romanticizing it yet, because of the fact that he was still married and really trying to be a good guy and do what he could to try to make that work and have some integrity with his marriage. And I was also married. And the night I met John was pretty much the night I decided, okay, this is done for everybody's highest good. This needs to end one way or another. And everything lined up that within about 2 months, it wasn't even a month, it was not even that long. Jeez.
2 weeks. It was 2 or 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, it was about a month and a half, maybe. Just a few weeks. That everything lined up perfectly for me to make an exit that wasn't dramatic or too hurtful to anybody. We had realized, my husband at the time and I had realized that things were sort of winding down, and so there was a difficult adjustment period there. But because I knew what John was, and as I discussed in the previous video, I knew that, my marriage wasn't going to last forever, and we were simply soulmates. And I was trying to attract the one in. When I found the one, John, JV, there was this really profound knowing that I needed to get my butt moving, because as much as I had been building and creating this list of who I was trying to manifest into my experience, And as much effort, growth, and learning and so forth I was doing on a personal level, I was not ready. As much as I wanted to just jump into his arms and I wanted him to just run and come pick me up and we'd go to some, crazy place in the woods and hide out there and bond and, all of that, I knew I was not ready for this. And was being reflected to me immediately in the first conversation as my divine mirror. The things that he was telling me, I was realizing that it was going to be a minute, and I had to be okay with that. And it was for both of our good, mostly understanding about the divine mirror, that I needed to start really listening to what he was saying and taking that as a cue to me about the individual work I needed to do to ready myself and parts of myself that I was still being inauthentic, as much as I was trying to come deeper into my truth and live a more authentic life.
So this is a key part of the story for me, and what's been incredible to witness afterwards, because I wasn't privy to this during the time. But rather than the typical ideas of he's just not that into you, or
which people told me,
or the ideas of victimhood that come upon us if somebody disapproves or doesn't accept us, Nikki took any rejection or any place that I wasn't ready as a sign of something in herself that she needed to work on, rather than putting all of the energy externally on me or anyone else. And that's a key to what has, accelerated the process for her walking into the life that she dreamed of. And that's what we're both doing right now. And the reason we're sharing any of our story is because we are living authentically, doing successfully the things that we want to do, and having a good time doing it.
Oh, lots of fun.
And so
there's some craziness too. Don't get us wrong. The universe sometimes has to shake things up because there's something we're missing, or because we're just in crap energy for a moment and not being grateful enough, or we have a lesson to learn. So sometimes still things get a little rough for us, but the overall mood and setting together is union. The overall picture of our experience is one that there's a lot of joy in, that is outside of what most people are willing to do before retirement, so to speak. We're really truly pursuing our dreams and doing so fearlessly, pushing forward, and really working to inspire others and create more leaders, because we see how much change is necessary, and we hope to be able to get more people on this path so we can accelerate all of humanity towards a positive transformation of authentic experience that we all desire, what some of us would call heaven on earth. We know we can get there, but it takes more people. So everything that we share, again, is not to glorify ourselves, but to inspire you. And one of the important points in our story that I use to inspire other women is the fact that it is so important to not, as much as it's going to hurt sometimes hearing things that your twin has to say, or looking at them, we find ourselves sometimes in judgment. And I had those moments with John, but again, I had to keep reflecting it back to myself. And because I was wholeheartedly holding that with I would say about a 95% faith, meaning that only 5% of the time was I in doubt or anger, judgment, blame, etc. Really, really just like pushing myself to do this the right way. That is why I was able to go from manifesting him into my experience and then accelerating into my physical union with him in less than a year, a month, and a day, and being able to stay together since then without separation. Even though he was running before that. I know that some people have a really long path behind them that's taken them to this place where they're still in separation and they're still in the runner and chaser phase. But the truth of the matter is that you can pick up and accelerate and hit the gas at any point in time you're willing to shift yourself. So don't think that just because my experience was quicker than yours that it's any less real or successful for you. It's just a matter of taking cues from people that are in union to understand how you can get there and realizing you can shift at any moment.
And so the point being is that not everybody's story has to be the same as ours to be what we are. And what that is, we call twin flames, highest soulmates, divine partners, the other half of my own soul. This has turned into basically a grand adventure with my best friend as my partner, exploring what the heights of human experience, what one man and one woman can be and can do together.
On every level.
And so we invite you to consider that possibility that there is a perfect partner for each of us, that we can have the love that we want, and that the foundation of that is to, when you find this person, first, be a good friend. Even if you jump right into a relationship, it's not to say you have to wait. It's not something that happened as a before. It happened first, but we're still friends. And that idea of being best friends has saved our butts more times than not in moments where maybe one of us in the moment wasn't exactly living up to the husband or wife the other one desired or our expectations thereof. There were a couple of times where I said, even if this isn't what you want, even if I'm not the husband you deserve, then let me stick around for a minute and just be the friend that you deserve, and try and start there. And it's the foundation that we return to in every moment, in every moment, anytime that there's any question of anything that's not just the fluid, harmonious dance of our love, then that's the baseline to which we return, friends first.
So, the first night we talked, getting back to the story of our adventure together and building this foundation of friendship for a year, a month, and a day, literally 111. We we had talked that evening, and there were so many synchronicities. And as he was telling me about his experience, I was realizing, wow, I need to get on his Facebook and totally Facebook stalk him and open my journal and see how these dates are matching. And sure enough, they were. And I was just blown away and realizing the power of my own manifestation, and that the whole purpose of the call was not even necessarily for us to get to know each other. From my perspective, it was not even about us getting to know each other. It was as if, God was speaking out of him saying, hey, check this out. Look at how good your magic is working. Look how good your law of attraction is. And you ready to get the vibe right now? You ready to really rock it? So, with that little bit of validation within the first 48 hours of like checking dates and everything, and seeing all the synchronicities and signs, I was like, okay, so now what? Now he's telling me he's married and he has kids. So in other words, he's unavailable. And I am not going to pursue being the other woman. Now, I know that some of you have been in that situation and you have accepted being the other woman. So know that there's no judgment in that. There's only learning and lessons. I'm not saying that there was anything, better or worse in either scenario. It was just the individual choice that I made. So again, we would never judge somebody for that. And we understand that because so many of us meet when we're married, which has significance, understand that you're good to go. No one's upset with you but you, if you're even upset about it. But for me, I made a choice to do things differently, mostly just because of where I was resonating and vibrating at the time. And to be completely honest, a lot of it wasn't even about anything ethical or moral holding me back. It was my own insecurities. And having seen pictures of his wife, I was like twice her size at the time and going, wow, okay. And I was really insecure about my weight at the time because I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am now when I met John, closer to 70 pounds probably heavier than, no, 60, than I am now when I met John. And I had a lot of self-esteem issues with my appearance and didn't feel like I could compete with something like that. And so I realized his unavailability and my unavailability was that truly, if he was in this, what's the word, like imaginary prison he was in of this
illusion.
Yeah, this illusion of a marriage that he was in, that I had put him in because of my unavailability in this, as I'm looking in the mirror, was because at that moment in time, even if he drove to my house that night and picked me up and we ran off to the woods, I was not ready to open up intimately to him. I was not ready to be trusting and free yet, which is what he deserved. And of course, I deserve that too. I deserve to feel trust and feel free, and he deserves to have that from me.
Now, from my perspective, well, I was going through a lot of inner turmoil that entire time because just could not forgive myself for not being happy in the life I was in. And I kept trying to make both happen and go to events and be with my friends, and even got my ex and my kids out to some of the events. My kids had a great time, but my ex just could not tolerate the environments and the people that were bringing me joy, and couldn't see the value in what I was doing. So I was living in two worlds, very literally, for that entire period of time. I had the life that I was living, taking care of my kids and being in the home with my ex, and then I had what I could do whenever I could get away for a day or a weekend, to go to an event, to be with friends, and any kind of event, any sort of spiritual celebratory event was, I was following the yoga theme and kirtan music and all of these things, but I was definitely leading a double life, and the truth started to poke through. The authenticity of who I was and what my heart wanted was coming out, but it would retreat. So there would be these moments where I would, really be giving Nikki attention and affection, although, we never had any inappropriate contact before I had left my ex.
Keep telling you that yourself, that
well,
buddy.
we didn't I did not officially cheat. So I guess that's the final answer there, according to most, without having to get into more details, right?
Fair enough.
But there were places where affection was expressed or intimacy was expressed, and I would retreat violently, even after being the one having initiated, because of my guilt, because of feeling like I was a bad guy, because I wasn't making my marriage work.
Yeah, and so this was something that during the course of all of this, it was very frustrating for me because right away, John and I met in person 2 days after we first spoke on the phone. And like I said in the last video, he called me the next morning. He called me the next afternoon. He called me the next evening. Like immediately this pattern started happening where John was always calling me. And occasionally I would call him if I had something I needed to discuss that was like business related, or I just was having a crappy moment and wanted to hear his voice or something. But John,
you would say she had a part-time John instead of a part-time job.
Like the amount of time we spent on the phone together was ridiculous. And it was apparent to everybody except John. It was apparent to his wife at the time. It was apparent to my husband, and then my husband in separation, because we were trying to maintain a friendship and still spending a lot of time together. And so he was with me while my phone was going off all day, and he'd be at my house when I'd bail outside for an hour and a half to talk to John, or vice versa. I'd be at his house and bail outside to go walk around the block for 2 hours to talk to John. When John would call, and texting all the time, and Facebooking, and him randomly calling me on Skype when I was on my computer. Like, I don't know how he managed to survive that year, because he was constantly calling me, and then, would this was daily. This was going on for a while, and I was, really confused in certain areas that I hadn't completely grasped yet. But realizing that this whole thing, that the chaser is the runner and the runner is the chaser, was so apparent in this in this particular scenario, because quite literally, John was pursuing me, and there was no way around that.
He just wasn't trying to catch her, evidently. Not yet.
Every single friend that we had in common, that knew us in public, because we became this public duo as soon as we met each other. The very first time we ever met in person, we came to the event together. And then every event, almost every single event we went to that following year, month, and a day, we went to together until he ran. But we'll get to that.
And we had come up with, I was, genuinely wanting to have access to these events and be more involved, and genuinely wanting any excuse I could to be with my friends and the people who were bringing joy into my experience. And this is where it was happening. And so Nikki and I started working together. I had gotten actually hired at Bhakti Fest, and she was already working for Lovestock. And so we were working in events and promotions and working with sponsors and such. And then we created Blistable and started doing that work together. And so we were going to these events for, spiritual seeking.
Yeah, transformational festivals, spiritual events, conscious music concerts, and gatherings and campouts, and you name it, all in the spiritual and transformational conscious veins.
So we were seeking so many things that were being fulfilled there. One was an earnest pursuit of spirituality with others, and not having it be some rigid, very structured, very dogmatic, here you go, cookie cutter, take it or leave it. But, this was a playground of spiritual ideas that people were sharing. And we went seeking, social fulfillment also, that we wanted close bonds and time with people that we were not having in our 3D friendships. And then we were also seeking to legitimize this by bringing business in, by making this something that could create value and abundance and have that, need to produce in society in order to survive.
Literally manifesting abundance, pursuing our passion.
So these ideas were starting to crystallize and come out of us even before we were together. We were technically on our mission together, at least parts and pieces of it.
Yeah. So we had started, but then I got to, so here we were going on to all these festivals together, and a lot of them we would camp and we would share a tent. And sometimes his wife would come and he'd toss me in a tent to the side or something. But we were in, grouped or themed camps with friends. So it wasn't odd that I was sleeping right next to them. But she always knew. You're like totally destroying the set over here, Godzilla. You pulled down that thing. You're like shaking the camera everywhere. Johnzilla, jeez. So, anyway.
I didn't even notice I had done that.
Yeah. You spent so much time setting it up, and then you yourself destroyed it. You cannot blame this on the feminine.
Why do you think boys like making castles out of blocks?
I don't know.
So we can knock it down.
So, getting back to what I was saying, we were camping and sharing an air mattress together frequently, sharing blankets. We were finding excuses for cold weather to cuddle. The very first event the second event, I believe it was, because Become One was the first event we went together, which our good friend Aaron Michael McElligott threw on. And or through, and that was like a more artsy, conscious art and community, small scale event. And then we went to Lucidity Festival, and it was year 2 of Lucidity Festival, and this is one of the strange synchronicities. So year 1 Lucidity Festival, a different friend of mine had asked me to go attend, and I really, really, really wanted to go, and he bought tickets for him and I to go. And we were very platonic. There was nothing there but just friendship. And since then, he's actually had a full sex change. So, way to go, Hannah. Um, and we were supposed to go, and he couldn't make it, and I chickened out. But we had done a lot of promotion for Lucidity Festival year 1, and I recall thinking to myself, like, maybe by this time next year I'll have someone really awesome to go with. So Lucidity Festival rolls around, and I was completely out of the loop with it. And John was totally in the loop with it and got tickets. So we were able to go for free. And this was kind of where our first date took place. We rode up there together. We set up our camp together.
With a chaperone, mind you.
Yes.
Because our friend Bernadette was with us, and so she was there to wag the finger and make sure there was friends first. So, I mean,
but she was a bad influence in other ways.
Yeah, so
to most people.
And to say, to say the truth there, we shared a tent, but these were kind of communal arrangements. So that first night at Lucidity, we didn't feel like setting up both tents, and I had a guy's tent and a girl's tent ready to set up, but we just set up the one tent, and all of us slept in it. Bernadette on her cot.
Well, yeah, and you and I were sharing the air mattress, so there was somebody else sleeping in the tent, and we were still shy with each other. But what ended up happening is that there was a moment in time where we shared an experience together that we hadn't had in a long time individually. I don't know how open you care to be about that, but we altered our consciousness. Let's just say that. and John just magically opened up. Like, I was already there, and I was so nervous and so desiring, and just like, but keeping it to myself because I didn't want to push or pursue or, scare him off. So I was being authentic enough and saying things like, I love you. But it was like, he was saying it almost immediately after we met in on a friend level. So it was no surprise for me to say that. But that night he was holding my hand and walking me around and wanting to show me things and wanted to buy me special treats, and we shared a mango lassi, which was just bliss. And I never would share a drink with somebody, but there was not a question at that moment in time about me sharing that drink with him. I was all about sharing that drink with him that night. And
there was still this place at the time, we were at Lucidity, that, the ride up to the festival was just this huge excitement, because we were leaving behind this world that was not making us happy and stepping into who knows what. That's the truth about the festival and why it's so magical. It's because people go expecting that things are different than where they're at. So we don't carry as much negative baggage or projections into these spaces when we go to an event and go with, with the shared intent that everybody has of just having a good time and finding out what that really means. So this festival, Lucidity, had represented the culmination of the sort of fun that I had been missing from my life, my whole life, that I had been wanting. And it's fun that's hard to describe, but just to give a little snippet, it's gathering with friends for a camping trip. Most people can at least identify with the idea of getting out of the hustle and bustle, getting out of the city, getting out of the routine. And then it's also a playground. Adults, just really seeking to have fun. One afternoon, we all grabbed a bunch of bubble wands that Nikki had brought and went around making bubbles and just having a good time and laughing with people.
A water fight and
dancing. And plenty of people for sure understand dancing, but dancing has, going dancing to me had in a modern society this connotation of like going out, getting drunk, partying, or looking to get laid. And at the festival, the people who are there to dance came just because they want to dance. And if we meet somebody or a romantic connection happens, that's wonderful. But the point is, the expression. And we went to these events where what was happening is Native American and New Age spirituality were kind of,
and Buddhism
and like all
and
of these
Hinduism
different
and
spiritual ideas were kind of coalescing and commingling into one prayer that was becoming a celebration of life, of fun, of community.
And at the festivals, they're almost like modern day revivals, like the ones that had happened in the 1800s, and it was literally throughout the day you have speakers talking about Christ consciousness and Buddhist principles and New Age
meditation
things
and permaculture gardening.
Yes, and Hinduism, and the Hare Krishnas sing all night in this one tent. They sing softer at night, but they, are sing louder and more exuberant during the day, but they're there 24 hours for anybody to come sit down and chill and meditate and listen to Hare Krishnas sing and play their harmonium. So it's like just this massive co-created experience between all, at Lucidity Festival that year. I think it was 4,000 people. It's almost doubled now. But that year it was about 4,000 people.
And so with these events, one of the things I was experiencing was this excitement about going, and then a absolute blast of joy in so many flavors and colors and experiences. And then at the end, this very, very deep sadness of having to leave, to go back to a life that wasn't making us happy. And everyone has this experience at the end of the festival, like, why do we have to go home? Why can't we just stay? And that kind of idea that life can be fun was really what drew me out, and eventually had me just realizing I'm never going to have fun. I'm never going to enjoy my life. And if I can't show my children what, an adult that still enjoys life, then I don't have anything good to teach them. Because the truth is, none of the adults around me had taught me anything that made my life joyful, that made my life fun. And so I was going to have to find that on my own. My hope was to be able to bring that to my children, to be able to, find a way of making this pursuit of joy something that was serving.
So we spent that year either at these events, promoting these events, supporting these events, spending a lot of time together. In the process, however, what was going on is every night John would go home to his wife, and I had to just accept that. And he would, there would be several days in between, because we lived about an hour apart, where we wouldn't see each other. It was mostly weekends and midweek that we would see each other. So there was some gaps in between actually seeing each other in person. But he would call me every day, and I would have to sit there and listen and give him authentic advice. I even gave him marriage books on how to try to make it work. Because what I realized is, as much as I wanted him for myself, again, I wasn't pursuing, I wasn't pushing anything. And the truth is that if I wanted him to be able to leave in a place of peace, in a place of knowing that he had done everything he could, the only way I could truly support him in that was holding him accountable and, encouraging him to have integrity with his marriage. So I was, literally pushing him with marriage books and defending her when he would tell me about arguments that they had. I would take her side and push him to do something better. Again, I kept reminding myself that he's learning now through some hard stuff with her, the what to do's and what not to do's by the time he got to me, whenever that was. So that was really important too.
There were other moments too where the truth came poking through from one end or the other. Like I said, moments where I was expressing affection with Nikki that, is not indicative of a man who's going to make the marriage that he was in work. And there were also some other times where, in her frustration and listening to me whine and complain, that she just spoke the truth, regardless of whether it might chase me away or not. And I think that was actually important for these truths to come out of her, because whether or not I was willing to accept or receive them in the moment, the truth once spoken just keeps ringing out. It just resonates in you until you get it. And one of the times, I was complaining about my situation, and Nikki said, dummy, this is a choice. You don't have to stay in this. If you're gonna stay in it, quit complaining about it. But if you're not gonna stay in it, all you're doing is prolonging the inevitable. You have a choice here, and you can get out. And at some point, the way that she actually expressed it when I argued what she said is, one day we're going to be married and running a ministry together. And I said, you are out of your mind. That's inappropriate, Nikki. I'm a married man.
I could never look at you like that. I'm not even attracted
You're
to
not
you.
even
You're
my
not
type.
my type. And was just
go get a boyfriend.
On and on and on and on and on. And for a split second, I was like, oh, how dare he? And then I was just like, oh, this poor fool. And started kind of chuckling on the inside. I'm like, whatever, John.
I'm going to have the last laugh on this one. And here she is. Still laughing.
So anyway, the point being, there's another important side of this, because I've talked about what John and I were doing during that time. And that when we weren't together, he was usually at home taking care of business there. But what was really important for me, and what helped accelerate me even more, is that I was on an adventure. And I would meet up with John and connect with John and go with John on whatever adventure he invited me on. But I was on an adventure. I spent almost no time at home at that. I would go home to do sessions, to have a quiet space to do sessions, to sleep, to shower, to eat, and things like that. But the majority of my time I was out, and I had, my ex and I were splitting our time with our daughter equally. So I'd have her for a week and he'd have her for a week. And so the nights that she was with me, I was doing things that a child could do with you. I would go to yoga classes, or go to the ashram. I would,
she came with us a couple of times too to some of our other events.
Yeah, so. She did.
So did my kids.
Yeah. And so, I was doing things that were still appropriate for her. Not that I was ever doing anything that was inappropriate, just things that a kid could actually participate in and enjoy. Have fun, wasn't going to be distracting, things like that. Like she
long meditation retreat, probably not the favorite for a 10-year-old.
Yes. However, I was absolutely out just playing in the realm of infinite possibility and still experimenting and trying new things. And through the process, meeting some really amazing people. And it started to snowball and get bigger and bigger, like closer and closer soul connections, because the more I opened it up and the more authentic I was getting with the things that I was doing, and continuing the self-work, everything that was healing in me, I was attracting these amazing people into my life. And there was a lot of women in that, but truth be told, I became a magnet of soulmates that were male and just absolutely fantastic. And other than something, I had actually slept with two people that there had been mutual interest in prior to me leaving my message, meaning that, we had felt some connection there, and we explored it pretty quickly after I left my marriage. Getting that out of the way, I pretty much made myself available and was like, I'm ready to go on platonic dates. I'm saving myself for the one, second virginity, if you want to call it that, whatever. I'm not going to sleep with anybody, but I am totally interested in platonic dating and just having fun with men. And besides putting that out there and having some friends that were like, oh, I'm actually interested in this because I want to hang out with a woman, but I don't want to get you pregnant and I don't want to get stuck in a relationship right now. I just want to hang out with a chick and have some fun. So let's go get dinner and have some philosophical or spiritual debates or whatever. Go hiking, did all kinds of things. But through this, I met a couple of really close soulmates, and one of those was a humanitarian that lived abroad who ended up, we became so close, and he activated me onto a bigger portion of our mission. And him and I became so close that there was actually one night we had gone to Burning Man together, and there was one night in particular that we were walking along and exhausted and again, an altered state of consciousness. And I looked at him and I was like, "Are you my twin flame?" Like, it was really crazy, and I got over it pretty quick. But anyway, the point is, we engaged on a step of our mission, this bigger picture thing that at the time I thought John could never catch up to this. Like, I'm just doing this, with Michael. And again, there was nothing sexual between us, and there was intimacy, and there was a deep love, there. But it was never going to be as romantic as it would be with John. And so we enjoyed our time together, and even agreed at one point in time, let's just be the ones that hold each other's attention until something greater comes along. That way there's like no attachments or commitments to either of us. And yet we can be free with each other right now without being afraid of walking on eggshells or anything.
What's very interesting is that at the time, even before having met Michael, I was very rejecting of the very idea of a Michael. Now, any man that Nikki was telling me about, I had 19 reasons why they were no good for her. Nobody was good enough for her.
It didn't matter what date I went on with anybody. And John would just... Oh, he crashed my dates, repeatedly crashed my dates. Like, I would be somewhere and he would text me, and if I was ignoring my phone, he would text me over and over and over again and call me over and over and over again. And it didn't matter. Like, one time he actually showed up at the restaurant I was at and came and sat at the... You said you were going to meet me out front and give me the flyers. You made the excuse that you had... Yes, you wanted to come in, didn't you? And I couldn't turn you down.
I drove out of my way just to bring you stupid flyers that did not need to be brought to you.
Exactly. He knew I was going on a date that night, and he's like, well, why don't I just meet you out front of the restaurant? And then he got there and he's like, oh, it's been such a long drive, and I was like, do you want to come in? Like, it's fine. And so he literally crashed my date. Oh, and that was the other thing. He was supposed to meet me after the date. He was supposed to have something to do, and then claimed that the person flaked on him, so he just needed to come then. And I was like, oh, you're so sneaky. Why can't you just admit that you are not wanting me to be on this date? But literally, every time I would go on a date or anything would happen with somebody else, even if he didn't know about it, he was freaking out and texting me constantly and calling me until I'd pick up.
And the point that I was making with that was that not that we encourage anybody to go run away from love, okay, and substitute, but where I was not making myself available to her, she would take whatever was available in our friendship, with me. Well,
gratefully.
Well, not being persistent or pursuing, but she had clearly, spoken her desire for something more to me, and was not willing to let her adventure wait. And she tried fulfilling, with other partners sexually, and just realized that wasn't going to do it for her. But she was still willing to fill her joy with every bit of adventure and love that she could.
And this is what's really important. I didn't put any expectations on anybody. It was just more of a what you got kind of attitude I had. And so because I was so open, the universe was bringing me these amazing men that were each offering me so many different, opportunities for travel and adventure and shaman journeys and crazy, classes and meditations and experiences and meals at nice restaurants and you name it. There was just so much going on. I was just in absolute bliss, and I was getting to the point where all I could see of myself was a goddess, And that's all anybody else around me could see. I was just so on the mission, working towards world peace and wanting to be of service to humanity. I gave everything up, and John kept telling me, "You're so crazy, you can't do this." While he's living in his big fancy house in a gated community, and trying to still hang on to the 3D and the comforts of living in the system and not going against the system. I was just like, nah, I throw it all away. God's going to take care of me. I've got enough meat on my bones to last, missing a few meals if I have to.
I'll make it through winter.
I'll be fine. And was having a really good time.
So this all culminated at one event that we were both at together, and we were having shared experiences there because we were both working the kitchen, and separate experiences. And so at another Bhakti Fest, the third one that I went to, and the first one that you went to, I had made the decision at some point during the weekend that I just deserved more. There was no passion in my relationship with my ex, and I decided I deserved more. And I ended up having a little bit of a flirty evening with a soulmate, and whom I kissed. And
well, actually, you're missing the big magic right before that.
Well, so I didn't even know about all of this magic, but at the event, we both kind of got pushed into believing in our worthiness of something more. And Nikki kickstarted that. And
I had a massive breakthrough while meditating in the desert and looking up at the stars and realizing how infinite everything was. And with all this law of attraction, and mind you, I was there with John and 3 of the soulmates that I had been
competing with.
Not even competing with, just enjoying myself.
Watching me chase around.
Well, they didn't realize they were in competition with John, but John felt like he was in competition with all of them, and we were all camped together. And so I had gone out for a solo journey in the desert and was meditating and realizing how well this manifestation thing was working, and just look at all of this that I've created and this bliss that I'm in right now. And that was the moment of my realization that there was truly a benevolent force out there that had my back and was answering my prayers abundantly, and even the crap ones.
And she had, it's interesting, when I got into pursuing these events, I had kind of, was hooking together a group of people and hanging out with a group of people that went to events, and Nikki kind of got brought into the fold because her and I had met separately. And so she had this feeling.
I felt like I was the geek sneaking into the cool kids party while I was coming through all of this. And it was taking me a minute to realize that other than these 3 soulmates who were very clearly interested in being in my life because they wanted to be in my life, that all of these other people, I was truly vibing my tribe. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, how could I miss this? They've called me. They invite me places. They are friends with me on Facebook. They click like. They leave comments. Like, clearly they're paying attention to me. They're wanting me to be at these things, be in their space, in their circle. Like, how did I miss this? But it was just this massive moment of worthiness that just, I was crying so hard, and I got up, and somehow it was as if angels carried me. I ran barefoot in the middle of the night through the desert, wearing no shoes and just this little tiny dress. And I just headed up this hill back to where we were all camped. And John, not even knowing how he ended up there, ended up in this very obscure place where we just literally crashed into each other in the darkness. And he caught me in his arms as I'm
she was bawling her eyes out.
And I said, "Oh my God, John, I'm worthy, I'm worthy." And I had realized through the culmination of all that I was worthy of him and our union in this lifetime. I was worthy of having it now, and that there was no reason not to, other than my disbelief of it. And that realization opened Pandora's box for the entire universe.
She didn't communicate to me, that that's what she'd realized she was worthy of. But, she was kind of sobbing. But I got the idea that she was realizing she was worthy of all of us, of the community, of the fun, of the love that we were all sharing. And I said, of course you're worthy. And I don't even really remember doing all of this. I know it happened. But I was kissing you on the forehead and kissing you on the face and
holding me and squeezing me and wiping my tears away. And
it was later that night that I guess I decided that I was worthy of having passion in my life and went chasing a girl to kiss. And that kiss was the entire extent of our needs to clear up any karma in this lifetime, which works out beautifully and is quite uncomplicated and is kind of endearing actually. But it was the next day that I went home and I asked my ex, "Are you done with this relationship?" And she said yes. And as soon as I felt released, I literally packed my stuff back up in the car, took off back out to the desert to go back to the event that Nikki was still at. And she was the first person I called when I said I left Rita. So I think that concludes the Friends first episode. There's a little bit of a journey.
Well, this is where the running comes in.
So when I took off, we had a near miss in the desert, and I ended up 1,600 miles away in Alberta, Canada, telling her I'm never coming home.
And we'll talk about
tell that story, The Long Way Home. I think that's the next one.
The Long Way Home. There you go. The long journey home. How about that?
But we're John and Nikki. Our nicknames are JB and Starseed. We're interfaith ministers, and we preach good news. We can do it in any language and any interpretation. Our website.
Don't say any language.
Well, in any spiritual language. How about that?
Fair enough.
And our website to get a little bit more info on our mission and what we're doing, what we're working on is vowofservice.com, like wedding vow. VOWOF service.com, and keep along with us, guys. We'll tell you more of the story. It's been 8 months since we started doing the video, so we've got a lot of catching up to do, but it's going to get live pretty quick here that we're caught up and bringing you with us on the journey to see what we're doing.
Yep, and we'll have more informational videos for specifically geared towards twin flames too, because we're so pulled to that community to assist others into union. And we do our spiritual counseling and transformational coaching with a niche market with twin flames on a donation basis, so that nobody gets left out because of financial reasons, because we have an ulterior motive for doing this, because we need you in your unions and on your mission, helping us save the world, and
we don't want to have to
dreaming up what's next for you in your joy and bliss with your twins so we can manifest a better world. So it's just really important to us to continue to help all of you and get you to where you want to be and where your heart wants to lead you into this physical union, and get past all these limiting beliefs so that you can become a stronger co-creator and help us manifest heaven on earth. So
and I want to leave you with one gift, and this is something that I don't know if I said this to you and had you repeat it that night, but it was in moments like that we give this to the friends and soul tribe that come home when we're learning of our own worthiness. And it's just an affirmation. I invite all of you to say it with us. My twin flame is exactly what I need. My twin flame is exactly what I deserve. I am exactly what my twin flame needs. I am exactly what my twin flame deserves. And my tribe is exactly what I need. My tribe is exactly what I deserve. I am exactly what my tribe needs. I am exactly what my tribe deserves.
So yeah, that's a great affirmation. And so our fan page on Facebook is facebook.com/vow of service. And our twin flame group, for those who are that know that they have found their twin flame and are either in union or
actively
pursuing and holding faith in physical union, are invited to join us. And that group is called Twin Flames /144 or 144,000 for Unity of the One World Tribe.
Easy way to find it
is
is
facebook.com/groups/Twin Flame Found. So that's our group on Facebook, and we look forward to meeting you online or at a festival sometime soon. And
this is how we're going to close every video from now on, with a kiss. See you guys.
oh, wait, here.